Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, I'm going to tell you the unlikely story of a solo indie game developer named Matteo and how a simple idea he had in the shower turned into a game that sold well over 100,000 copies in just a few months, completely setting up his future as an indie game developer. Now, I had a chance to speak to Matteo and he gave me a lot of interesting insights, revealing the sequence of events and the things he did that led to this success. So that's exactly what I'm going to get into. I'm going to break it all down. What is this game? What did he do? And why did it likely become a success? All right, let's get into it. So the game in question is called Paddle, Paddle, Paddle. You sit with a friend, co-op or single player in a boat and fight over the controls and try to navigate the boat through a complex and fun maze.
Yes! Oh my fucking god. No!
It's very awkward, intentionally by design, a rage game targeted specifically for streamers. I guess you could call it a slop game, friend slop, or whatever the latest kind of genre trend is at the moment. It's a very simple idea, but well executed, and at this point, some of the biggest streamers in the world have played it.
Oh. Stop!
Okay, go.
No, I need to do it.
Yep. Okay, we're good.
Now, before we break it down further, I want to give you a bit of backstory here. You see, this is not Matteo's first game. Prior to this, he was working on a game called Mackie's Adventure, a beautiful 2D pixel art side-scroller that he spent many years working on, that he released in 2023. In this game, you can morph into a shark, there's all these mini games, and I have a lot of respect for the work and effort that's gone into this. And as someone who's working on a similar style game, I know exactly what it takes to get something like this out the door. And while the game did have positive reviews and it was a great learning experience for him, Matteo confessed that it was ultimately a commercial failure.
I think it sold maybe 10 to 12,000 copies lifetime over 2 years being out on Steam, or 3 years right now, which is not very good for a commercial game. We gotta be honest here, it's not enough to make a living. And I thought I have to do a more quicker game, a more like a commercial game next, because I want to live from video game development in the next years. And I don't want to spend more like more 2-year projects and don't have the return of invest, you know.
And that's the comedic irony of life. You know, you can spend years working on something deep and meaningful to you, only to launch it and it flops. And then you can have a simple idea that you have in the shower, execute it within, a few weeks, and you just have great success. And that's exactly what happened here. But it could very well be that he needed to go through that process to kind of hit those failure points and redirect to better understand what kind of games he should be making. Or it could be argued that slop games are all the rage right now and it was simply a matter of luck and timing. Whatever the case may be, Matteo disclosed that Paddle, Paddle, Paddle made in just days what Mackie's Adventure took years to make. And when we spoke, I just had to ask him how he felt when he hit that success.
The whole launch was like a fever dream, you know. Refreshed the Steam dashboard and saw like units sold, you know. It was crazy, and I think I outsold Mackie's Adventure in a few hours already. I think the moment where I thought I had made it was 1 week after launch, because I compared my numbers to David Whaley from the first week, and he sold I think 14,000 units after the first week. And Paddle sold 15,000 units in the first week. So I knew I had made a bigger launch week than David Whaley, which really broke my mind.
All right, so let's now break down the exact sequence of events that led to this success. What he did, who he contacted, and importantly, what kind of stats did he have going into launch? What were his wish lists? And some of these might actually surprise you. So let's start at the beginning. He had a random idea that came to him in the shower, the breeding ground of many great ideas. He then prototyped this idea in a matter of hours. He then posted this footage to Twitter/X, and it was kind of semi-viral. It had like 1,000 likes, 75,000 views. So then in response to this post, he had all these streamers reaching out to him, very interested in playing this prototype, asking if they can get a copy. At that point, he knew he was onto something. So he spent about 2 weeks working on a demo that he released. That demo got 80,000 downloads and a whole host of positive feedback and excited comments, at which point he knew he was all in. So he committed and spent another 3 to 4 months working towards a final Steam release. He also took part in the Steam Next Fest.
Next Fest didn't really make that much of an impact, but it brought the game to more people, you know, because people saw the game. I think it added 20,000 more like demo plays and stuff. But the wishlists for the game are really low.
And a few days prior to launch, he hit the popular upcoming games tab in Steam. A very important thing to trigger in the algorithm. And he did that with only 8,000 wishlists.
So I made a Steam page very early. I think it's the first like 5 or 4 days of development. I already had a Steam page up and collected some early wishlists because people were like hyped for the game. And I was hyped to develop it. So I thought, why not make a Steam wishlist and collect, because you know you have to get to like 7,000 to 8,000 to get in popular upcoming, and that was my goal. I just wanted to be in popular upcoming and just reach the 7 or 8,000 wishlist number.
And then came launch day, July the 25th. Prior to pressing the launch button, Matteo had 10 to 11,000 wishlists. A fairly conservative number by a lot of modern estimates. Some people now claim you need, well over 30,000 to trigger Steam's algorithm. But it did not stop the game from hitting the new and trending tab immediately, where he stayed for 4 whole days. And the rest is kind of history. The game's success was sealed. And now 3 months after launch, the game has sold well over 100,000 units, made a stack of cash, and been covered by some of the biggest streamers in the world. What a story, huh? And again, I just want to stress that this game had fairly conservative wishlist numbers at launch compared to what we're often told we need these days. And if you're on X, you'll see games often showing off their wishlist numbers. 30,000, I have 50,000, I have 100,000. I recently saw a game letting everyone know they've reached 1 million wishlists. Like, what the hell? I don't even know what that means. I can't even fathom a number that big. So to see a game that had only about 10,000 wishlists going into launch hitting these like high sales numbers is really, really cool. It does give some insight into how the Steam algorithm might work, because keep in mind, this game's whole production cycle from nose to tail was only about 3 to 4 months. So it was very compressed. And even though the wishlists were capped, they were coming in quite fast. And it obviously triggered something in the algorithm. And often this has been referred to as wishlist speed or wishlist velocity. So it's something to consider. By the way, if you could pretty please help me out with something. I'm so close to 100k subs and I just need that final push over the line. So if you can hit that subscribe button, it would really mean a lot to me. Now back to the video. Now what's very interesting is that when the game sold 100,000 units, at that time on Steam, it only had about 550 reviews, which is kind of an interesting imbalance. A game that has sold that many units, you'd expect the reviews to be high. Now, I asked Matteo what his thought on this was, and he agreed it's very unusual.
The whole conversion rate and the whole numbers are really bad for my game. I have to admit it here. Because the game was sold 110,000 times right now on Steam and has not even 1,000 reviews on Steam. So the whole number and like the whole metrics, people message me all the time, like marketing people, and they message me with stuff like, how bad is your conversion rate and like your review to unit sold rate, and I'm like, I don't know why, maybe because it's like a rage game, but then I see games like Get to Work which have like a similar, I think, unit sold number but have 3,000 reviews, so I think it's more like my game is really bad maybe with the conversion rate and stuff.
Now to be honest, I'm not a big fan of these rage slop games. It's not really the kind of game I would spend playing in my free time, even though I did play a bunch of this to kind of see what it's all about. But, I do respect the success and I understand the appeal for both gamers, streamers, as well as developers. And in this particular case, I was more drawn to the story of the developer. The fact that he spent so long working on this gorgeous 2D side-scroller, had kind of a failure with that, then got straight back on the horse and started working on this, and then ultimately and eventually finding success. That story is really what caught my attention. And I have a lot of respect for his previous effort as much as I do for this new one. I actually like his previous game a lot more. It more aligns with the kind of games I like to play. And if you're in any way familiar with the game I'm currently working on, Blood and Mead, you'll understand very much why I'm drawn to that previous game, Mackie's Adventure. It's a fun, bone-crushing action RPG where you travel a vast world, upgrade your skills and stats, and even turn Super Saiyan and decimate everything that moves. and it's nearly finished. I can't believe it. So give it a wish list. The sad truth is 2D platformers do often underperform on Steam. You know, when they can hit big. Games like Silksong, obviously. But there are a lot more examples of failure than success. And that's partially because they are just not streamer friendly. So marketing can be a little bit limiting when working within certain genres. The success of Paddle has almost completely been driven by streamers, with streamers like Kalis, who has 19 million subscribers, playing it in depth, and so many others. I can't even list them all. I don't even know who these streamers are, but I checked their subs. It's like, yeah, it is big streamers. There was one streamer duo that even bought a boat and sat in a boat on stream until they finished this game. And it's pretty committed, man. So it just kind of shows you how much fun people are actually having with it. And I asked Matteo how he got some of these streamers interested. And he told me he was posting tweets about his game, tagging those streamers in his posts. He was also DMing them. He was also visiting their streams, interacting and engaging with their communities. So he was doing a lot of legwork. And that is to say that if anyone was just to kind of make this game now, you're not going to be guaranteed the same success, because there was a very particular path he went down. He contacted different people and a few puzzle pieces fell into place. Now, funnily enough, after the apparent success of this game, so many other clones started immediately popping up, like one-to-one identical clones. And that's something to consider as well. When you have a game that is fairly easy to execute, a lot of people can just quickly clone you. Like this game, the mechanic, I mean, he himself made the prototype in like 3 hours, and I think any skilled developer could do the same. But I'm not sure how many of those streamers are going to want to play some clone as opposed to the original, especially since they have some kind of connection now with Matteo, and he's planning to release all these other game modes and things like that. And another interesting point to mention is Matteo was working on a completely different game called Rogue Jungle when this new idea came into play. The Rogue Jungle is like a much bigger game, he's spending a lot more time on it, and this was just kind of like a fun prototype. And that prototype became something that took over the main project. And that often happens. We've seen that with backpack battles, where they were just kind of working on that as a side project to their main. And that side project quickly became the main project. All right, so let's see how Paddle is doing today. You can see that the player base has remained fairly steady. It's become one of these games that could have a very long tail. You know, a timeless party game. You know, there's so much potential in this IP. And I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually got like physical arcade licensed cabinets, much like Crossy Roads does. You know, it's that kind of game. And that's kind of the dream, isn't it? To have this game that doesn't just fade off into obscurity after a few months or a year, but has this really long flat tail that you can kind of keep whipping, and it becomes a stable or even increasing source of income over time, you know, well into the future. And you know, as someone who has spent many years working on a very time-intensive game in their spare time, I'm starting to see the sense in working on much smaller, more potent, faster turnaround projects. Fail fast, fail often, and then eventually you'll perhaps hit. But ultimately, we will make the games we want to make. The games we are drawn to, the games that interest us. You know, while sales and potential profits and things like that are important, they aren't typically the only factor that draw a lot of us creatives to the computer to start coding. We're kind of driven by our inspirations and our passions, sometimes foolishly, admittedly. But the truth is, life is finite and there's only so many of these games that we can ever make. And I know a lot of us indie developers have lists of game ideas that are long enough to fill 3 lifetimes. So, you know, we have to consider scope if we have any chance to realize any of these ideas. Or at least try not to do everything ourselves like I and many others have done.
I really love to make like smaller games and get some refreshment from bigger games, you know, because if if you work on a game for years, you are like, in the end, you hate your game. I think we all feel the same. And as a game developer working on a game for 3 or 4 years, I know people who worked on a game for 20 years, and I don't think I could do that, to be honest. I'm not that focused on one game for that time because 20 years is so long. I think it's such a big risk, you know. If you really want to make games full time, then I think indie developers should definitely maybe have like maximum of 1 year of development for games and don't overscope because that's definitely something I don't want to do anymore.
So I want to wrap up by saying congratulations, Matteo. What you've achieved is truly incredible, a real life-altering event, and I can't wait to see what comes from this game and your future games, because you clearly are a talented and passionate indie developer. Oh, and I'll also be releasing the full discussion I had with Matteo in a future video. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Good luck to you out there.